Hello there, friends. Another Tim Kirby Russia hot take. This time we're going to take our hot take information from at least one post and maybe a few posts on Tim Kirby Hardcore on Telegram, a great source for news, information, memes, and madness, loosely related to Russia. But again, guys, I shouldn't be too jokey here because we have actually a very serious development in the war in Ukraine. From RT News via Mango Press. Mango Press also does some really fantastic news, some good work. You should subscribe to them. It says the UK aims to poison the next generation in Ukraine? ? Moscow reacts to Kiev being sent depleted uranium rounds. So that's our big topic for today. These depleted uranium rounds and what this means for the future here. So it continues on. Russia's foreign ministry spokeswoman, Maria Zakharova, has slammed British plans to include the controversial ammunition along with tanks heading to Ukraine. Here's what she said in an interview to Sputnik Radio. Point 1. Depleted uranium rounds will kill the current generation, and the next. Okay, that's a bit hyperbolic of a statement, but she backs it up with the next following points. Point 2. Discussion was blocked after NATO was accused of using rounds against Belgrade during the war in the 1990s. Okay. Point 3, which is much better, links to weapon show lasting ecological damage effects on those using depleted uranium rounds, proven by Italian Parliamentary Commission. Point 4, NATO and member states still silent on ex-soldiers suing the alliance over illnesses, while 22,000 plus people died in Serbia from carcinogenic illnesses. So that's the real big point there, is you guys have probably heard of Gulf War syndrome, this mysterious illness that affected a lot of the U.S. servicemen who, went into Iraq, especially right after the whole 9/11 thing. That is supposedly connected with the use of these depleted uranium rounds, because what happens? So the round hits something, it explodes, and it creates a lot of dust. And the uranium radioactive particles, even though there's not that many of them, they create this sort of carcinogenic dust that everyone breathes in, especially the locals, and it sort of gets all over everything. Because you have to remember that although, this tank shell, or I believe it's actually a sabot round, so it's sort of the hard core object that hits the enemy tank there, when that hits, going at these insane speeds, it really kicks up a lot of dust and particles and sparks and all this kind of stuff. It's not like a lead bullet hitting a piece of body armor where it kind of turns into a big flat pancake. There's a lot more pieces flying off and getting particleized, apparently. And this goes all over the place, and people breathe it in, and especially those who are more vulnerable, like children and the elderly, certainly suffer. One thing that was kind of interestingly stated, that it apparently causes ecological damage. Now, this is one thing that haven't really heard much of in the past. I always heard it affected people when they were breathing it in, but apparently it can also affect the land. So again, if you guys have faith here in Russia today, we have some words from Margaritas Thoughts that I translated via Deep L. So it says, Margaritas Thoughts on the depleted uranium rounds in Kiev's hands. Quote, after depleted uranium, nothing can be grown on this land. Vegetables, fruits, cherries, bread, everything will be poisoned. Would anyone poison their cherries on their own land? That's the answer. It's not their land. They don't consider it their own. They hold it hostage. They hold our land hostage along with the people. Sorry, guys, I'm reading really badly today. Worse than usual. Then there are 3 options. 1, release the hostages. 2, let the hostages die. 3, agree to be blackmailed with hostages until we either release them or they die, as terrorists always do. It's your choice. Okay. So they're trying to, in some ways, hold the land hostage because they can sort of basically, according to her, spread some sort of contamination. Now, I repeat that I've always heard this was something that really affected humans more so than, plants and so on and so forth. But we really shouldn't put it past our good friends at NATO to maybe try to scorch the earth of the enemy. But there's one thing that I wanted to bring up that's very important in this conversation about depleted uranium, if it doesn't have an ecological effect. Now, you have to go back to a talking point I've made many times with you guys about how essentially there's really only 3 places on the planet that could create enough food to feed the planet. That's the American Midwest, where I'm from, That is the breadbasket of sort of like, of Russia, Malorossiya, and like Volgograd and Krasnodar and all that other stuff, right? The sort of southern part of Russia. And the plains of Argentina can produce insane amounts of food, good enough to basically cover a fairly populated planet. Well, that might be an interesting strategy for the West to maybe try to destroy, or at least severely reduce, one of these three great regions of the planet. Because food is always going to be a good sort of mechanism for manipulation. And if they can severely reduce Russia's ability to produce food, that also severely limits its ability to use that particular commodity, much like it uses lots of commodities like palladium and oil and gas and all this other stuff. It really reduces their ability to, use that lever of influence with food, especially going farther in the future, especially as America not only deindustrializes, but de-agriculturalizes itself. So I could see that there might be some dark plans ahead for the soil in and around Ukraine in order to severely restrict Russian growth and it's the use of commodities for foreign power. Now, there's one thing I also wanted to show you here. Also, Tim Kirby Russia Hardcore, that's where all this information gets shared. If you want to get a lot of information and mental memes related to Russia loosely, join up. But anyways, here it's written in Russian that it basically shows the amount of children who were born with some sort of, defects. The Russian way of writing this is is a lot more 19th century and brutal. It says, it's the born number of freaks per 1,000 newborns in Iraq from 1990 to 2000. I guess this would cover then the first Iraq war, where they used a lot of depleted uranium, apparently. And as you can see, somewhere around 1997, boy, does that spike really go up. And the amount of, as the Russians put it, freaks, not my terminology, their terminology, has risen dramatically. That seems to be, an 8-fold increase? 6-fold? And it stops at 2,000, but we don't know. So that's actually a lot of people. I mean, if you think about it, roughly 18 children are born with some sort of horrible defects out of 1,000. That basically means that pretty much everyone in Iraq knows someone who was affected by that. So that's a pretty strong argument to take some real concern on the side of Russia about this particular issue. It's kind of almost like that story in the Bible where the two women couldn't decide who gets the kid. So the wise king, I think Solomon, says, "Why don't we cut him in half?" It's kind of like, it kind of reminds me a little bit about that because we can't come to a resolution to this conflict. The kings of NATO are just going to flip over the chessboard and cheat and destroy everything. Well, anyways, guys, that's a little bit about the importance of why these particular rounds are vastly more important than sending a few Leopard tanks or training 2 guys to use F-16 somewhere. This could be a real game changer, not in the sense of the Ukrainian side winning, or they should say the Kiev side, because the Kiev side isn't necessarily the Ukrainian side. In fact, it really isn't. It's not a matter of helping Kiev win. It's making sure that the Russians, and basically everything, including all life forms in the region of the Donbass, lose. That seems to be their ultimate objectives here. Anyways, guys, Tim Kirby, Hot Takes, signing out.